it falls on me to introduce Inaya Iman to continue the case for the opposition.
Thank you for the invitation to speak at this historic chamber. I will not deny that at the pulsating peak of a concert or the electric atmosphere of a nightclub, we can deeply feel that a given artist such as Stormzy is defining that moment, that their cultural cachet is all-encompassing and all-consuming. Indeed, when dancing to the central tunes of Janet Jackson, to suggest that we discuss politics would seem bizarre. Politics, in these specific moments, can seem stale, boring, ineffective, irrelevant. But do these moments really represent the needs and demands of a society? Or are we missing the wood for the trees? For I believe, from a society-wide perspective, it is a democratic arena that is not just relevant, but fundamental, transformational, imperative, and we dismiss it at our peril. While Stormzy's music may speak to the frustrations, anxieties, and joys in a given moment, it is Boris Johnson that has the power to change the way that society is organised. And it is he who we must recognise as such, so that we must demand more, hold him accountable, and remove him if he fails to deliver. Hip-hop music, the genre to which Stormzy is part of, has undoubtedly contributed immense value to the world. From fashion to linguistic embellishments, enabling diasporic young black males in particular to take ownership of their own stories and the way that they are portrayed. NWA, Public Enemy, Tupac, Arrested Development, this music has given a voice to generations, and its importance must not be trivialized or understated. But the proposition today is not whether hip-hop or grime or rap has, on balance, been an important force for good. It is whether Stormzy is more relevant than Boris Johnson, and in this, I would say no. Let's take the current energy crisis. It will not be Stormzy that we turn to as the cold winters roll in. Or the cost of living. It is not Stormzy who we will demand to ease the pressure on our pockets. Or the vaccine rollout. It is not Stormzy we will call upon to protect the vulnerable. This is not to say that individuals within civil society can't have a powerful voice, but it is ultimately the political process that will focus those voices towards change. In fact, to expect Stormzy to be the solution is to see these problems as problems of individual behaviour rather than social organisation. Oh, if only celebrities gave more money to build more housing. No, these are political failings that require political solutions, and we must hold those who have the power to change things genuinely accountable. I don't blame Stormzy for the housing crisis. To expect Stormzy to be the solution is to let our politicians off the hook.
More information.
No. While Stormzy may speak about the challenging experiences of inner-city London life, it is Boris that has the power to change the social conditions that birthed individuals like Stormzy. In fact, figures like Stormzy have very little influence on people's decision-making, especially when it comes to politics. And no case better exemplifies this as what has already been described with the case of the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn. The summer of Corbyn was such a moment. It was also seductive as people sang "Oh, Jeremy Corbyn," and it rang out in Glastonbury. It really did feel like the fabled youthquake had finally arrived. Stormzy calls Boris Johnson an effing prick and endorses Jeremy Corbyn as a, quote, man of hope. Stormzy and other performers such as Akala, Loki, Kano, so they were voting Labour because the party offers an urgent alternative to the destructive policies of the Conservatives. He even told a bunch of primary school children that Boris is a very, very bad man. And he isn't going to change anything. Surely that would swing the minds of those pesky Red Wall voters. Weeks later, Boris Johnson won an 80-seat majority, and Labour got their biggest defeat since 1935. In fact, for many voters, there is something incredibly insulting and patronising about the idea that they vote in a monkey-see, monkey-do fashion, where all they need is a little nudge from popular celebrities and they'll follow along like sheep. Have we learnt nothing from Brexit and Trump and other populist revolts across the world? Voters do not want to be sneered at and will not take that lying down. For many voters, their vote is their most important tool, their most powerful, most consequential form of expression, and they hold it very dear. They don't vote a particular way merely because celebrities tell them to. Boris, for all of his faults, and I assure you, I am no Boris lover, although there are many people that do feel that way about him, there is something quite remarkable about actually getting elected democratically. We must harness this power as far as we can take it. We must imagine, we must think big, get creative, organise, and use politics to transform society democratically. It is easy to make public statements, but there is something genuinely commendable about getting elected and creating a roadmap to change society. Now, this may not seem the most exciting or immediate process, but it is the one that affects every single one of us every day, from transport to schools to student finance. Politicians are always keen to talk about their legacy because they know only too well the immense impact of the actions that they will have and will be judged by history. Tony Blair and the legacy of the Iraq War, mass immigration and tuition fees, to David Cameron's austerity measures, to the Brexit referendum and so on. These are era-defining policies that have a far greater influence on the course of history, not just a few top 10 hits. Today, culture has become politicised. Rather than debate ideas out in the open and win the arguments amongst the public, increasingly, ideologues, moral entrepreneurs, and anti-democrats enter and weaponize spaces of cultural production, such as the education system, universities, and so on, to forward their views without public scrutiny. This allows them to give the sense that their views are more widely held than they actually are. How often do you hear a singer come out in support of Boris Johnson? Very rarely, that is. And if they do, they're often scolded and marginalised. But this is not representative of the wider public attitude. We must be alert to and cautious about those who seek to politicise culture, how it often functions to corrode the influence of the citizen on the direction of society, prioritising the views of the cultural elite over the ordinary voter. Politics, in principle, is a mechanism to which we negotiate differences as equals. No one individual, be that Stormzy or Elon Musk, can be a substitute for the citizenry that knows its value and demands a place at the decision-making table. Don't look for the knights in shining armour, because they are not coming. We must not reduce politics to fashion or useful endeavours and excitements. From the rise of so-called influencers to social media activism, this often reflects a shallow form of political engagement, one that is divorced from questions of structures, particular political programmes, and democratic scrutiny. This temptation to elevate the fashionable and trendy means we avoid asking the hard questions and doing the long and often arduous work of improving people's material lives. This includes risks, imperfect decisions, and the lessers of two evils, unlike the glossy, highly created world of the pop artists. Boris Johnson in Ukraine. For all of the criticisms levelled at him, we have seen a Prime Minister make a real difference when it comes to Ukraine. President Zelensky has heaped praise on the Prime Minister for the swift supply of weapons, for the training of Ukrainian soldiers. His visit to Kiev encouraged strong moral support. There are few more influential and consequential matters, such as war and peace. Undoubtedly, famous people like Frank Zappa, Bill Hicks, Bob Dylan, and yes, Stormzy have had immense influence culturally and even intellectually. But politics and democracy in the UK, currently embodied in the election of Boris Johnson, does and fundamentally must have more influence than Stormzy, because it represents our power as citizens to change our society, to recreate it and to transform it, and I refuse to diminish that. Thus, I ask you to vote against the motion.